So what can you do to earn your first $100 on Amazon KDP? Now this video will be for those that are likely to be beginning Amazon KDP, because what I'll also show you is my first 3 months and how long it took me to reach my first $100. Now if you haven't been to this channel before, welcome. My name is Romney and thanks very much for coming along. So during the video, what I'll do is show you 5 key tips that I think are really important to earn your first $100 on Amazon. But there'll be obviously critics of these 5 tips. There'll be people that expect to get the miracle tip that will give them $1,000, $10,000. But these 5 tips will help you, definitely help you to reach your first $100. Now you might have truly exceeded that first $100. Congratulations if you have, but if you haven't and you're still finding some challenges, then hopefully these tips will help. So let me get into those 5 key tips right now. So let's get into these 5 key tips to help make your first $100. Now $100 is going to make a big difference in regards to your enthusiasm, your commitment, and your momentum for Amazon KDP. Over the long term, $100 may not be that much, but when you're first starting out, it certainly is. Getting your first book sale and then being able to generate enough book sales to reach $100 is fantastic. So let me show you my journey for my first 3 months, and then that will give you some perspective about where I've come from and what my first year also looked like as we move through these first 5 tips. So it did take me 3 months before I made my first $100. As you can see, it was March 2020 when I did start to make some revenue from the book sales. Now my journey did start, it was right at the end of December 2019. Then throughout January, February, and most of March, I didn't make a cent. I was spending money on advertising, not getting anything in return. But then things started to turn. And by the end of my first 12 months, as you can see, I made just under $19,500 US. And that came through getting these first elements right, making a commitment and moving forward with taking a lot of action to make sure that I was progressing and that I was learning along the way. So let me go into tip number 1. So tip number 1 from me would be that in 2022, I would avoid creating no content books. The only exception would be if you're learning the process from the very start and you just want to get used to the upload process on Amazon KDP. Now you may be aware that recently Amazon have made the change where they're not providing free ISBNs for what they consider low content books or large print books. Now this doesn't include say learn to write books or puzzle books or colouring books, those sorts of books. What they consider low content books have minimal or no content, or on the interior pages are generally repetitive and designed to be filled in by the user. So that could be a sketchbook or something like that as well. Now there has been confusion about what a low content book is. And they're also bringing to the fold that a no content book would also be considered a low content book. But there's also low content books that are considered low content, but they're not. For example, like a learn to write book. So you just need to be careful there with it. I can't help you with those questions at the moment because Amazon have been very vague in their description of what a low content book is. But what I'm suggesting is don't create no content books. And they're the ones they're referring to here, where it's like journals, notebooks, planners, where there's very little information in there, because I think that the space is too competitive for beginners to really get into, to really try and make some money unless you're well established and you've been publishing books for 4 or 5 years and you got into the niche quite early. So that would be my first tip. Don't, if you can, avoid creating no content books in 2022 unless you're first starting off. Now let's get on to tip number 2. Now this would be one of the biggest downfalls of many first publishers, is that you're so keen to get going that you spend very little time on niche research. Niche research is challenging and it's hard, and if it takes you a full week 2 weeks to find the right niche, that investment of time is critical. I too made the mistake of trying to get niches that I thought were going to be best sellers, but they're in spaces that were far too competitive. And in hindsight, I wish I'd gone for those that were less competitive. Therefore, I stood a chance with my books and my sales. And therefore, you might find that if you're creating books in really competitive niches, there's a very, very small chance you're going to be able to create a sale, because the others that are more popular and have got advertising power are going to be in front of yours. So spend the time. Do not rush. Take your time to get the niche research right. I've got a whole portfolio of videos about niche research and about doing that. And they're all free videos on YouTube. So check that out in that playlist if that's of interest to you. So make sure you do that. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3. This is going to get some pushback, I think. Some people are going to say, I don't have any money to advertise. And you're saying, at a minimum, create a simple, broad-term Amazon ads campaign and allocate $20 to $30. Well, if you don't have that money, you really need to do whatever you can to get marketing directed towards your book. Now, I find Amazon ads the most direct way of being able to generate sales, and it does take some time to get used to using Amazon ads. But it's been a big investment from me to learn the process, but it has come back tenfold in regards to what I've been able to generate in sales by using Amazon ads. Now, if you don't have $20 to $30, you need to be resourceful and find other free ways to market your book. How you can ever expect to sell a book if no one knows about your book is beyond me. And if you do have that secret formula, please let me know. But you should never just expect for Amazon, once your book goes live, for them to do the marketing for you. They have thousands of books per day that are being loaded up to Amazon, and they too are in the process of wanting to earn income, and they're not just going to do free marketing for you. So the best way, I believe, if you want to make your first $100, is to actually spend $20 or $30 to start with, to start to generate your income, or to start to stimulate the income of book sales. So then in month 2, month 3, you can start to get some traction. Your book starts to appear on page 1 or page 2, and you can then start to generate those sales. Without some stimulation via marketing, whether it be through YouTube, whether it be through Facebook, through Amazon ads, you need to do something. And there's plenty of ways that you can get traffic to your book, and you just need to be resourceful. So if $20 to $30 is beyond your budget, well, you need to think of something else to do. But for me, that is the most direct, the best way, and the way that I've found that I was able to start getting traction. And that's why at the end of year 1, I was able to generate so much income from my books, because I actually took a punt and started to spend money. And probably over the first year, I might have made over $18,000, $19,000 in that first year. I did spend approximately $2,500 in Amazon ads, but that was gradually over the year. And then what I did is money that came in, I then reinvested back into more marketing and advertising. But it was backing myself. It was getting some revenue in through book sales, and therefore I was able to reinvest that back in. So you just need to make sure you do whatever you can to market your book, both free and paid ways. And the 4th tip is be persistent. Don't give up at the first sign of failure. If I'd given up after month 1, month 2, even month 3, I would never have achieved what I've been able to achieve now. And yes, it was hard. I found there were a couple of months there, even month 3, month 4, I was finding it challenging. Even after month 6, even though the income was coming in, I was still finding it really hard, because the hours that I was investing didn't really reciprocate. I wasn't receiving the revenue that I was spending in time with creating my books. I think if I calculated the hours and the revenue I was coming in, I was probably earning $2 or $3 per hour for the amount of time I was spending creating my books. But now, because I did all that heavy lifting, that work prior, that's now come back so many times to me that allows me now to do other projects because I've got that recurring revenue that's coming in. And if you hear people sort of say, well, you know, you can't make much money on Amazon KDP, well, it might be those people that gave up too early. And yes, it's going to be challenging. I found it challenging. I still find it challenging with new books, knowing that all the time and effort that I'm creating these books, are they even going to be successful? I don't know. I just put the same processes in place that I have with other books that have been successful, and it is a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge, but that's the beauty of Amazon KDP. It tends to filter out those people that aren't prepared to continue and push hard, and those that are will reap the benefits of being able to use the platform to be able to create and publish books. So please make sure that you're persistent. If you're spending so much time and effort creating these books, then make sure you spend the time to actually do the right thing and invest your hard-earned time by being persistent and being resilient to any failures you come up against. And I've certainly had my fair share during the journey. So what's tip number 5 to make your first $100 on Amazon KDP? Well, this comes from my experience, and I'm guilty of doing this for my first 10, 15 books, even more. What I was doing was I was creating a book, it would go live, and then I'd pretty much the next day go on to the next book and start creating the next book. And then that would go live and I'd start creating the next book and the next book. What effectively I was doing was creating these resources, these books or digital resources if it was an ebook, and I wasn't giving it any time at all to succeed. I almost thought that the creation process and the uploading process was the job done. But there's so much work that needs to be done once your book goes live to make it a success. And don't fall for the trap that I did of thinking that Amazon is going to promote your book. You just need to spend another 2 to 3 weeks promoting your book, and then it can be a ongoing process depending on the kind of book that you create. If it is a book, for example, if it's a seasonal book like a Valentine's Day or a Father's Day or an Easter book, then a couple of months before that occasion each year, you need to go back and try and market that book again. You can't just let it sit there and expect that sales are going to come back to that book 12 months later. You might need to run some Amazon ads towards that book if you do have a seasonal book. My preference is to have evergreen books that go the whole year. Therefore, it's just a consistent process that I go through, looking back over the books, making sure they're getting traction and moving forward with that as well. But just don't jump from one book to the next. Your book that you've created deserves a bit of love and time to make sure that it actually deserves a place on Amazon and for you to reap the benefits of your time and effort to create that book. So that's tip number 5. So there you have my 5 tips to help you to reach that $100 on Amazon KDP. It can be elusive for the first few months, but keep persisting, keep doing different things, and keep finding out what things you could improve on to get you that $100. Now, if you want more information about what I create and how I help people, just make sure you check out the description below. I do have courses on SkillShare, on Udemy and Thinkific, and I've got my own publishing accelerator, which is my fully comprehensive low and no content publishing course for Amazon KDP. So make sure you check that out if you're interested. So until the next video, I look forward to seeing you then.